Hello and welcome to ARC 13131 once again, and we are in week 4 now. We're going to talk about assignment number 10, which is a profile portrait drawing from an image, not from imagination. And I'll show you some examples of that. Anytime you want to get examples, just put in essentially the assignment title and profile drawing, and you'll see some examples. Now, they have some drawings here that are more of a template, some that have no shading, some that are cartoonish, and some that are actually in the realism. We're going to be drawing in realism, something that is more real looking than not, and not exaggerating the eyes or any other features. You're going to be drawing from a real image, possibly your own. Or you can draw from another image if you don't want to draw your own face. If you do want to draw your own face, then take a picture on a profile. Profile means the side view. Now, that doesn't mean it's a 3/4 view, which would show partially the other eye. So it's really showing only one eye at the side, and not a 3/4 view. This is up more on the 3/4 view because you can see partially the other eye. This one, no, you cannot see the other eye, so it is a profile portrait. So we're drawing profile portraits and not a 3/4 view or full face portrait. We'll do those later. So I will provide a video for this because there's a way to sort of map out the shape of the head. Basically, you are mapping out like this one, kind of a circle with a bottom part here that comes down to the jaw. Now, if you were to really draw this a little more freehand, you could make it kind of an egg shape on its side, or slightly on its side, slightly tilted egg shape. You see how the back is round, and then if you were to come up here to the front, it would sort of have that part that the egg gets smaller on one side than the other. Okay, so egg-shaped template drawing could work, or you have a circle here with this sort of part for the protruding jaw. Then you're going to have to add your nose and mouth features to it because they sort of stick off the ball or the egg shape. Okay. But once you get sort of mapped out the proportion you want on your paper, then you start adding all these other details lightly, very lightly with the pencil. You don't want any of these lines to show up later because they're going to be distracting. They're not real. There's really no lines drawn on a face. It's only shading from tone that is affected by your light source, by your single light source. That's going to create the light and dark areas on the face where the shape of the face changes and rounded and folds and dips and crevices and wrinkles and protruding areas like nose and mouth and chin. Those are all going to catch the light a little differently. Okay. Here's a pretty good example of that kind of drawing. Okay, so if you were to turn this on a kind of a tip to the side egg shape, you can see where I'm going here. That sort of gives you the general proportion of the head, and then you're going to add other things. Now, you want to remember, and in the video I'll point this out, that the eyes are generally in the middle of the head. They're not way up here with the forehead kind of cropped. If you really kind of measure, they're more in the middle or just above the middle of the head, but not by much. Because when you get up to the top of the head up here, and you come down and measure to the eye, and then you measure down to the chin, it's around the same measurement. So the eyes are going to be in the middle of the head. Okay, of course, with a profile, the eyes are set back from the nose, the bridge of the nose, into the head a little bit more. So you have this space right here from the eye to the bridge of the nose. Now the nose comes down a little, almost about halfway from eye to chin. Then you have your mouth set in, which is closer to the nose than the chin. There's a little bit more space from the bottom lip to the bottom of the chin than there is from the top of the lip to the bottom of the nose. But not much, but there is some. Now you'll notice all this from whatever image you're drawing from. Whether that image is of you or you're going to take a side profile of someone else and use that as a working model. But work from something real, not imagination. Okay? You want to see all the tone qualities, you want to see the proportions and not try to make them up. Now, the ear is placed past the halfway mark of the head. It's not right on the halfway mark. It's a little beyond that, and some ears can look like they're even further, but not so much that they're at the back of the head. Okay, so if we had a line for the middle of the head right here, then you would see that the ear here is pretty far back. It looks a little far back to me in this. I'd like to see the photo actually, if this was my student, but it's still very believable. Let's go back to some others images and see what we can find with those. It almost looks like Photoshop. I'm not going to accept that one. I think that's Photoshop. It's good drawing in Photoshop, but it's almost a 3/4 view, but I only see the eyelash, so maybe not, but this is more, in my opinion, it's kind of cartoonish because the eyes look a little big, the mouth is a little big, but maybe not. It's kind of bordering on that. Certainly, you don't want to do something cartoonish. This should be more along the lines. Here's the template. Here's the drawing, which is really done well. It almost looks like a photograph. But you can see how most of the lines have been gotten rid of with the shading. Remember that all skin has a tone to it, unless it is a highlighted area, like maybe the forehead, the cheek, and part of the chin. Part of the lips, maybe the tip of the nose, will be highlighted so much that it might look white as paper. But the rest of the skin has a slight tone to it, so shade that in. Very, very lightly if you want to, if you have to. Then you have the darker areas. And you're going to have to start being more aware of where they are. Under the chin, around the bottom of the chin, that's not a line, that's a shading area, shading line area. And then the lips have shading on them too. Underneath is a little darker than the top. Same with right here where it goes to the chin. Has a little darker area. Right in here in the brow where the eye socket has dark and light areas to it. It's going to give it its shape. Side of the nose where the nostril is connecting to the side of the nose and side of the face. A little darker in there. Now that's just that drawing. I understand that. Here's one's just relying too much on lines on the hair. So you can obviously see that that isn't realism. I mean, it's kind of a cool drawing nonetheless, but I want you guys to practice realism for the most part. So tone in this hair, make it shaded so that you see the highlights and the dark areas and the light areas, not using just lines with like empty spaces and sort of scratchy areas where there's sort of shading here. Some of the shading on the face is okay. It's a little scratchy here, you'll have to admit. It looks like there's little cuts and scratches in the skin. Well, if your skin isn't like that, you don't want to shade it like that. You want to shade it very smoothly. This is really well done. It looks like a photograph. It isn't. When you get hair and you tone it up a lot, maybe you left this a little lighter here, but you can erase out tone where you need it. You can add little shading lines to emphasize little places where the hair is. But mostly this might be just a shade that was lighter shades, that darker shades, and then they erased out shades with an eraser pencil. If you have one, that's the best tool to get. Otherwise, cut the tip of your eraser so you can erase very thin areas. And then you erase out that tone where the highlights are after you had tone in there, leaving other places very dark. And after you can create the tone quality that's giving the hair the shape around the head and the sheen on the hair where it's shiny because of light source. All the light and darks. Now this skin is all shaded except for the very light areas right here in the cheek, side of the nose, side of the neck, parts of the ear are the lighter tones. Darker ones underneath the chin, around the mouth, under the lip, tip of the nose, around the nostril itself, which isn't a perfect circle. It's like an oval shape. In here, you'll see, you can just notice all the darkest areas and shade them in where they are. It's a very good drawing. Uh, I Unless you're really good at attempting this sort of thing, I think it's charcoal in very light areas and dark areas. It is a well done drawing. It's a little bit on the impression side, I would say. It's not particularly total realism, but it is more real than a cartoon. And so you can use that technique, but finish it up mostly so that we can really tell it's more of a realism. This is a pretty good drawing too, although they kind of dropped the ball on the side of the hair here. Not that much, it is believable. The face is well shaded. It has highlights, it has darker areas in and around the cheek. See, this isn't all one shade here, or this. Several shades. Find them. Notice where they are and shade them in on your paper. Where they are. And that's the secret to the whole thing. All right? If you find all those shades, you put the proportions correctly, you place the features, the eye, nose, ears, mouth, chin, in the right positions, according to what you're looking at. And then you start shading in all the light and dark areas very meticulously, taking a lot of time, using the side of your pencil and the overhand grip for the most part. And then erasing out places you need to for highlights. You're going to get there. That's really all it is. But some people don't take the time to do that. It takes time. It takes using your pencil and learning how to use it for shading. And have a gradual transition from a light area to a darker area. This is midtones in here. They don't just suddenly show up on a cheek like that. They gradually show up to darker areas. So you're going to shade a little darker, a little darker, a little darker from the light area. And it's a gradual transition. This tells your audience the face is rounded. It doesn't suddenly change. Now, places that suddenly change may be right here on the neck. Not too suddenly, there's a difference. But right side of the nose there, the cheek kind of meets that nose and then curves over. So that's kind of a sudden change there. But a lot of other places are not sudden changes. What helps this one pop off the page a lot is that the background is shaded darker than the face, darker than the subject. The background shading dissipates as it goes away from the face. You see how it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, lighter and lighter? That's a good technique. It shows distance. Shows distance in your background. It's not all one tone, but it's darker than the head or the face and the hair, which brings out all the highlights in the face and the hair and emphasizes the dark areas as well. So take a look at that for a second. This is kind of your goal. You want the dark areas in here and the ear, light areas right around the outside of it. That's good contrast. Excuse me. Just getting over a cold here. This is another good one. So I went on Bing here. Oh no, this is Google. So Google Images, profile drawings, and look them up. And you can have them for reference. But in fact, maybe you can draw from one of these drawings that are really well done because they're kind of photographic. But if you can find a photograph, it's even better. Now, when you do find the photograph, pick a single light source. Of course, most of these have light coming from one side or the other, giving all this shadow area. Light area, shadow area, and you want all that. You don't want the whole face lit up because then there's nothing to shade hardly. And then you're going to have a hard time creating shape on your paper, which is the two-dimensional plane, and you want the three-dimensional. Look, you want that appearance. It only comes with contrast and shading because you're showing the shape of the face, which is a three-dimension, with the light and dark areas, which are provided by your single light source. So I sound like a broken record, I know, but that's the crux of it. You really need to address that. It was shown in the first videos for shading, which was shown in week 1 for assignment 2 and 3 and beyond. We're using those techniques and that concept of light source and contrast and shading throughout the term. Now, I like this drawing, but I think the hair is a little scratchy back here. Right here, it kind of looks like they dropped the ball there, right? You know, they want you to focus in on the face, and the other parts sort of get a little less finished, which I don't prefer. Not when you're really a beginner and you're trying to learn realism. You should learn to shade the hair as well. So we don't have a photograph of this. We don't really know, but yeah. So when you get looking at the the first video, and I think there's a part 1 and part 2 to it. You can start working with that. This is a good one too. Except for I think they're relying on line too much. Well, that's a video. Shoot. No. Okay, so let's go back here and see if we can see the end result. This one seems to back off the line on the lip and everything a lot. So this is pretty good. There's a little bit of a highlight right there because he left it really dark back in here. I mean light back in here. If he'd darkened that up, then you wouldn't have to have those lines on the nose and around the chin. You wouldn't have to have them. They're not really there. If you really study your photograph, there's not a line drawn on the face at the edge of the face at all. It's just that these shadings meet the other shading. They might slightly get darker, but it's not a writing line, it's a shading line. So there's a difference between that because one's a little broader and not quite a pencil tip mark. It is a side of the pencil mark. But I'd still like you to get away from using those, so use shading out here like that other one. that other drawing you saw. That was really well done with just shading on the outside like that. These have a lot of character, but they're relying on lines. But I think they want this guy to look a little scratchy, and his wrinkles so deep. These are really good drawings, I'll admit. Um, I don't know. I think you could soften up some of that and not use lines and but if you're using a shading line instead of a writing line, it probably will work. I like this one a lot as well. Dark background brings out all the highlights, and now this portrait is like popping off the page. Highlights in the hair, dark areas too. You can erase out tone if you put too much. You can erase out tone on the face and add back. You can do this all day and night to get the right exact look, okay? This one's a little unfinished in my opinion, kind of a quick drawing. The eyes are really well done and the proportions are all well done, but look at this shading. Scratchy, 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 scratchy. That's not accurate. It looks kind of cool, but it's just not accurate. Now, I'm going to quit showing these because we're getting kind of a long video here. But here's another one, relying a little bit of dark on the background there to emphasize the edge of the face. Okay, I think you have enough examples and you can go find more. I'm getting hoarse here and starting to cough, so we'll end it there. Watch the videos and we'll talk with you later.